Alright, here we are for round one with Stompy. We are playing against Smiley K. So, Smiley K, I believe, is a grinder. I think I've seen Smiley K with a couple trophies at different times. We're on the draw here, and we have a pretty good hand. 2 lands is just what you want. We've got a Vault Scourge, we've got a 1-drop to play, and then we've got some 2-drops. It's not an amazing hand or anything, but it's serviceable. You can't really go around mulliganing hands like this. Looks like we're playing the Mirror or against Elves. Elves is a terrible matchup, and we have a pretty decent hand for the Mirror, just because we have Vault Scourge plus Rancor. Drawing a land this turn wasn't great. We don't really need a third one, but it is going to give us a chance to use our Groundswell. Let's see what Smiley K is going to do. Probably just going to attack. We, of course, can't block, so our opponent has a ton of pump spells just like we do, so you always have to be careful of blocking against this deck. So it looks like it's definitely Stompy. They wouldn't be playing this card if it were Elves. So our opponent left up Vines of the Vastwood mana almost for sure. It's super unlikely that they have any that they don't have a 2-drop that they could have played, and that they don't have another 1-drop. So I'm gonna go ahead and just attack with my Vault Scourge and play out the Nest Invader. I'm not gonna play out the River Boa because I want to play that when I am able to regenerate it. You never know if they're playing Epic Confrontation in their deck at this point. Alright, we got an R1. Run out the Nest Invader. If I had my own Vines, I would definitely have run out the Rancor there. I would have just stuck the Rancor on here, and then when he went to Vines, then I would Vines too. I am going to block here. I'm going to block the Pit Skulk with the Nest Invader. Our opponent's going to pump it, but that's okay. Especially if they only have the Vines of the Vastwood, I'd like to get that out of their hand. Yep, pretty obvious that they had that last turn, and that's fine. See if they have another one, or if they're going to play their 1-drop. Okay, we drew a Burning Tree Emissary. I'm still going to wait on this Rancor, I think, until they tap a little lower, or give them more opportunities to cast their Vines. I really don't want my Rancor to get sniped by this Vines. This is kind of my trump card in the matchup, is Rancor on this Vault Scourge. So I'm going to go ahead and play a Forest out since I drew another one. Burning Tree Emissary is a pretty good draw here. It does allow me to play a 2-power creature and hold up Regenerate on River Boa, so that's pretty strong. Our opponent's down to 3 cards, and they're not going to be able to... I don't think they'll be able to pump this to lethal next turn. They can really only get it up to 14 if they have a land and triple Groundswell. So they shouldn't be able to kill us next turn, even if they have kind of the perfect set of cards. Alright, so here we go. Burning Tree Emissary. So we're in pretty good shape this game, it looks like. However, it's always possible that we could just die to like a Hunger of the Hellpack, pumping up this Pit Skulk, and then we just get raced. Especially if he's able to fizzle my Rancor. Okay. So our opponent is going to probably attack with some stuff. Well, actually, they probably can't even attack. But he's still going to have the mana up. So our opponent is going to have mana up for Vines every turn for the rest of the game, which is a little annoying. But in the end, it's not that big of a deal. That was a great draw. So this is one of the benefits here of having Bone Splitter instead of Rancor in this spot, is that they can't fizzle this Bone Splitter with Vines. I am going to save this Forest in my hand for now. Alright, so we're just going to attack with a Vault Scourge. We've been pretty fortunate. Our opponent hasn't drawn anything that can interact with our Vault Scourge yet. River Boa, okay. So River Boa is really a great card in this matchup. Right now our opponent basically can't attack with anything, simply because I've got my River Boa on defense. Okay, he's got the Quarian Ranger. Yep, still can't attack. So I'm still putting our opponent on having a second Vines here. Alright, that was a pretty good draw. So I'm just going to go ahead and attack with this Vault Scourge again. So you can see why Vault Scourge is so good in this matchup. Our opponent has basically drawn like a decent amount better than us, other than the fact that we got this Vault Scourge and they have drawn 2 Quarian Rangers. Like, they've drawn more creatures than us, but we're still winning this game right now. Alright, I still don't want to attack with any of this stuff. They've kind of got free blocks. The benefit to attacking with one of these is they would probably block with their River Boa and regenerate, and then I would be able to land this Rancor on my Vault Scourge, but I don't think that's quite enough to justify doing that. We get to play out this Pit Skulk. Alright. So if we draw another Pump Spell next turn, we should be able to win. Okay, another Nettle Sentinel doesn't really do anything. It still can't attack, and we're now at the point where our life total is just too high. If we draw another Groundswell, we are going to win here probably, because I'll be able to Rancor my Pit Skulk. Okay, Vines should do it too. So let's go ahead and just finish this off. Play my land so my Groundswell works, plus I can double, I can play both of these. I'm going to Rancor the Pit Skulk. My guess is this will draw Vines from our opponent, which they've been holding the whole game, and then I'll cast both of these things and it'll be over. If he waits, I believe he can probably win one more turn, but it's too much temptation, I'm sure. Let's go ahead and Vines with Kicker, our Pit Skulk. This will fizzle their Vines. Yep, we win the game. We didn't even need to play the Groundswell, so we won game 1 mostly on the back of this Vault Scourge, and we were able to really play around this Vines pretty well. Sometimes you don't have the opportunity to do that, but we were able to do it that game and pull off the win. So that's good. So I didn't see any artifacts or enchantments out of our opponent that game, so sometimes I'm willing to bring in like 1 copy of Natural State if I see a Bone Splitter and I see some Vault Scourges, but I've seen people cutting Vault Scourges, so I'm not going to bring in either of these things. If I had some Fogs in the sideboard, I would consider bringing them in. Sometimes this deck runs a Moment's Peace or 2 in the sideboard, but I don't play that in my deck, so I don't have that. Feed the Clan is not really like a Fog. It's not good enough, I don't think. We definitely want these Epic Confrontations, and I don't really want either of these. It is true that the Vault Scourge is one of the most important cards in the matchup, but I didn't see any out of them that game, so I'm going to leave this in the sideboard for now. And then the Scattershot Archers kill our own Vault Scourge, so we really don't want them in this matchup. I'm going to bring in these 3 Epic Confrontations. My general rule for this deck is if you're boarding in non-creature spells, you should be boarding out non-creature spells. But in this matchup, we aren't getting hit by removal. It's all about the quality of our creatures. So I will probably board out a couple creatures here. So let's group our creatures separately here. So cards that aren't that great. Nettle Sentinel is great. Quarian Ranger is not that impressive. It can't attack through anything, so I think I'm going to take 1 of those out at the very least. Maybe 2. Young Wolf is okay, it gets 2 chump blocks, and it does turn into an actual real creature, so I like to keep those in. All of our pump spells are pretty much great in this matchup. It's kind of the matchup you want most of them. Hunger of the Hullpack is probably the worst one, but it's the most situational, so it's got a huge upside if we draw our Nest Invader and we can put 3 counters on one of our evasive creatures. So I think I'm actually going to cut 2 Quarian Rangers, and then, especially since we're on the draw, we can be a little less careful about our land count. And then for the last one, I think it's probably going to be this Groundswell. It's so much worse than the other ones. Yeah, I think I'm going to cut a Groundswell. So I'm going down 2 Quarian Rangers and 1 Groundswell. You guys can let me know in the comments if you think that I did my sideboarding wrong, but I kind of like what I did here. I don't want to board out any of my 2 power creatures, so that's what I'm going with. Alright, this hand is horrible. It actually, I could consider keeping this if one of these was any other spell, but like if it's an epic confrontation especially, but I have to mulligan this. And my opponent's mulliganing too. Ooh, this hand is great. This is one of our best possible hands for a 6-card hand. Bone Splitter, actually pretty good. So the big problem with Bone Splitter is I don't have any evasive creatures at all, but I am going to have an Eldrazi Scion, and it turns that into basically a card, so I am going to put that on top. I'm kind of hurting my chances at getting kind of the nut draw, like if I were to get another Burning Tree Emissary, that'd be really good, but it is what it is. I am going to block this with my Nettle Sentinel. Reason being is I don't want their Pit Skulks to get big. Especially when he puts a Rancor on it or something. I'm still going to block it anyway, just to get it off the table. My theory here is that I have more creatures than my opponent simply because Nest Invader is 2 creatures since I have a Bone Splitter. Viridian Longbow is pretty annoying for me. And the land is a horrible draw. Alright, so I might bring in the Natural State at this point. Viridian Longbow isn't going to be very good against my deck in general, but it's very good against my best cards, which are the Vault Scourges. But this card is really expensive to cast. Like, that's just a ton of mana. Alright, so we were able to put out 6 power on the first 2 turns. We're probably going to lose to this. I would be kind of shocked if we could possibly come back, actually, to be honest. So I'm definitely going to need my Natural State. Yep. So, yep, we lose. We really needed to draw like a good pump spell. Like we really needed to draw Hull of the Hunt Pack. But here we are doing this instead. Don't really want to put it on our spawn. They can kill our spawn right now on this turn. So we're getting in there, but it doesn't look good. I don't think we have any draws that can get us out of this. Other than maybe Hunger of the Hull Pack if we draw it this turn. It's pretty annoying. So, those of you who hang out on Discord, you know that I always kind of make fun of this card in the Stompy sideboard. Because I don't think it's very good. But some people play it. Yep, can't block. So the reason I don't like this is it's not the best card in any matchup, basically. Like, there's almost no matchups where I'm like, wow, the Viridian Longbow is better than other cards. Ugh. I guess I'm glad I kept that Bone Splitter on top. So, like, against Stompy, I'd rather have Epic Confrontation. Against Delver, I'd rather have Aerial Volley or Scattershot Archer. Against token decks, I'd rather have the Scattershot Archer. Stuff like that. Like, I don't ever really want this, and I'd never want anything that costs 3 mana. This deck plays 16 lands. Like, you just don't get to 3 mana that often. So if our opponent has a pump spell, we would have lost outright right there. Instead, we just get to lose a little later. But that's okay. Pump spell, he would have been able to save his Nettle Sentinel and untap it and kill our Eldrazi spawn. Okay, another land. Yeah, so other than the Scry, we've drawn, what, 5 lands in a row or something, 4 lands in a row. So nothing we can really do about that. The reason I'm doing this trade, or like hoping to trade here, this is pretty risky from our opponent. Luckily for him, I don't have anything. I've just got all lands. Like, I would have expected as my opponent, even with this Vines, to still trade. Because I played a land kind of indicating that I have a Groundswell. Yeah, so what did we keep? Did we have a 2-land hand? No, we had a 3-land hand. Yep. Yep. This is very good. The reason I'm just playing all these out is because it doesn't really matter. I probably won't play anymore, but alright, I'm not going to play that because it just dies to the longbow immediately. We're going to get pinged to death by this. I would just concede, but I don't want our opponent to know that I don't have any answers in my deck. On the other hand, it's possible I should concede. Actually, I will. So, I have no chance to win this. They get to untap this like 3 times a turn. And this is going to indicate to my opponent that I don't have any answers. And I don't have any answers right now, but I will in the next game, because I'm going to bring in 2 natural states, I think. It's pretty decent against Rancor too, so I'm going to bring those in, I think. And then I think the worst pump spell, it's either Groundswell or Mutagenic Growth. I think I'm going to take out another Groundswell. And then, what else am I going to take out? Can't really take out any more creatures. I've already taken out too many, I think. So let's go with the Mutagenic Growth. Hopefully our opponent plays like a Vault Scourge and tries to pump it up, and then I kill it with this and really blow him out. Alright, let's go ahead. Would I like to play first? Yes, I would. 3 lands is more than I want, but this hand's okay. I'm going to keep it. It's tough to mulligan this deck because you're so likely to get a 1 land or fewer hand in your 6 card hand. Like, you're just not that likely to get exactly 2 lands. So Young Wolf is a lot worse than a 2-power 1-drop. Our opponent has had a Nettle Sentinel every game, but they didn't have one this time, so that's good for us. Another Nest Invader is only okay. I'm going to go ahead and attack with the Young Wolf, and then run out the Nest Invader. Fortunate that we don't have a draw like we had this game, because we would probably win with that draw on the play. On the draw, it's just not necessarily fast enough against Stompy. They've got all the same 2-power stuff that we do. See what my opponent is up to this turn. A Rancor, okay. Unfortunately, I couldn't really hold up Vines there. The only way I could have done that is if I cast Rancor on my Young Wolf and then held up Vines. But Rancor is not that scary on Aquarian Ranger. It still just trades with everything. Like, I'm going to block here. Actually, I'm not going to block. Oh, that's a tough call. So, blocking is a lot better. Not really better against anything, actually. So I'm not going to. Get to kind of strand their Rancor on their Aquarian Ranger. Like, if he wanted to play his Pit Skulk here, he still can. Yep. Pretty obvious that it was either that or a Pump Spell, and maybe both. Okay, we drew another land, so I can feel pretty good about playing out this forest. The reason I didn't block there, even though they're probably stuck on 1 land, is that I didn't want to get hit with a Pump Spell on a Rancor creature. Typically you want to really try to force them to use their Pump Spells on non-tramplers. I'm going to attack with my Young Wolf, and then I will Vines it if he blocks. I don't think he will, though. Pit Skulk is really important in this matchup. It's one of your only evasive threats. So I'm just going to do that. I should have probably played Rancor first on my Young Wolf, but I really wanted to play out this Nest Invader and hold up Vines, and I didn't want to sack my spawn just because chump blocks they're pretty valid in this matchup. Like, they're important. I can't really chump block this guy, but even just saving 1 life off of this. Yeah, look, he just spent a gut shot on my spawn, you know? So this is definitely a Howl. Yeah, we're going to lose here, I think. He's going to play Hunger the Howl Pack on something. I'm going to try to Vines it, and then he's going to play his own Vines, and we're going to lose the game. So that's a little unfortunate. Opponent has, I think, a little more sideboard tech for the matchup than we do. Yep. It's all very predictable and such. So we're not going to be able to block this probably for the rest of the game. We're not going to be able to get through it or anything. He's going to be able to block with this every turn. because he can untap it with Quarian Ranger. Yeah. Things are not looking good for the home team. Let's go ahead and put this on our spawn. And I'm going to go ahead and attack with everything. We're going to get gut-shotted. Yeah. Okay, we lose. Well, I won't concede yet, but we lost this game. We lost it last turn, but we really lost it now. I'm going to go ahead and attack with everything. He's going to get to eat one of our creatures, but I am going to get a Pit Skulk down then. So the reason I did that was that I wanted to be able to attack with one more creature here. Anything I put that Rancor on, he can block with his Pit Skulk and just take it out. The disadvantage of this is that now he has a Rancor that he can put on his Pit Skulk, but whatever. So we're dead in 2 turns. And we're still dead next turn to the Rancor. He doesn't have to play it this turn into our possible vines. Alright, so we have to draw Vines of the Vastwood, otherwise we're dead next turn. And even if we don't, we're dead no matter what. So I'm going to attack with both. So there's not really a ton of decisions in the Stompy mirror. Like, it's more about how you build your deck, and our opponent's deck is a little more teched out for the mirror than ours is. Yep, we're dead. So yeah, so our opponent has a little more tech for the mirror than we do. These gut shots are pretty decent. I mean, they're not amazing, but they really got us that game. So we happen to have, well, because he happened to have this Hunger the Hell pack and a Vines, and we only had the Vines. So that was pretty much that. And you can see how we won the first game. We happened to get the one thing that they couldn't deal with, and then we got really flooded second game, and then they got the one thing that we couldn't deal with in the third game. That's normally how it pans out. So the Pit Skulks and the Vault Scourges end up being the most powerful and important cards in the matchup. Alright, so with that, let's move on to round 2.